Alright, so in this video, I just wanted to talk about some very important subjects. First is to remember that you are beautiful. And on the other side of this, I wrote some very important downloads. And I'm going to share with you those downloads. The first, keep your waters clean. I wanted to talk about that. I wanted to share what I received on that subject, because if you think of water and a river flowing, you have all possibilities depending on what's upstream. Now, I don't want to say perfect, but in a clean environment, in a pure, pristine environment where that river is healthy meaning, it's a good question, what would healthy mean? Healthy would mean doesn't kill all the things downstream from the river. Meaning it would have to be a clean ocean, clean evaporation, going to the mountains, falling through the mountains, rain through the mountains, making rivers, going back to the ocean, creating a cycle that is pristine and clean would be healthy, because everything would be growing, everything would be vital, everything would be biologically vibrant, and nothing would have to decay and die in the sense that it would be caused by toxic water with chemicals in it and trash and plastic. I mean, obviously everything is always decaying and dying and being regrown into something new, but there are situations like when you spray a bunch of glyphosate all over the grass, it's just gonna die. It's gonna die, and other things can't really grow, and only GMO Monsanto crops can grow there. Right, so that's not, obviously, that to me is unclean water. And when I say keep your waters clean, what do I mean? Well, you're made of water. We're all made of, every human being is made of a lot of water, and our fascia is just a gel state of water, and it carries information, carries the memories, and it's basically flowing, it's basically moving, and it's actually moving across our muscles, and our muscles are full of water, really a lot of water, okay? And that water in itself carries memories, carries information, carries reflections of light, and we are ultimately made of this combination of light and water. This like almost a reflective nature to it, microcosm and macrocosm. Every space of water, don't say molecule, but every space of water contains a reflection of the cosmos in it, as does the cosmos reflect the water, or the water reflects the cosmos reflects the water. So it's all within, and as within, so without. And this is of course a hermetic principle. It's also a reminder that if your waters are dirty, what will you reflect? Will you reflect distortion, cloudy, or will you reflect clarity and emptiness and openness and purity? I mean, if you've ever seen a dirty river, the feeling is very different from a very clean and pristine river. You can see the bottom, so you can see the rocks, or it's this blue, crisp fluoride color. This is very pure as well, and it's full of minerals. So keeping our waters clean, what does that mean, and how do you do it? What I've come to is that the only way to do it is to eat and to do and to think and to speak in clear and clean, precise ways. It's not necessarily to be nice, it's not necessarily to be any certain way, but it is to uphold natural law. And at the simplest format is just simply uphold natural law. You can do anything you want as long as it doesn't harm any other being. And that goes very, very deep, and it's a very hard one to live by, I believe, because of the world we live in, where we have a society, most societies, and no very few, if any, there's small communities that seem to be working very hard to uphold natural law. But ultimately, the majority of the world population is not. And why I say that, I mean, natural law is not as simple as do unto others as you would do unto yourself. That is not natural law. That's a part of natural law. That's an element to that that's important. But what if you like to be beaten and you beat other people? It doesn't work. So do no harm. And we ask, what is harm? What is harm and what is violent, right? What is a violent act? And to whom? to whom are we doing the violent act? Because it would ask the question exactly, who are we not supposed to transgress? And how are we not meant to transgress? This is what I mean by keep your waters clean. And then it leads into the next one of eat life, living, giving foods. I wrote that very specifically, living, giving foods. So eat foods that bring you to life. Now I wanted to say that what would not bring you to life? Anything that you do that harms another being. Now everything is alive, right? So you have to wonder, what does it mean to harm? To take the life of, to take what is not yours. That is a harm. That is a transgression of the law. And it's not to say that if someone says, okay, you can kill me, and then you kill them, that you committed harm. It's to say when you do it unconsensual, without consent, right? So the natives, I get into food now. If we go into like the native traditions, they would only kill an animal when it would give them, not all, but in most cases I heard this, that they would only kill the animal if it was old, sick, weak, dead, and if it was already dead, it was dead, and you could eat that. But then there was an element to it where only if it gave its side, if it gave its, like, they would wait for the moment where the animal, sort of an energetic moment where it felt consensual. But they wouldn't kill before that. And that is important, because if we don't wait for that moment, then we're not taking it with consent. And the problem with that lack of consent is the energetic discharge must go somewhere. This is just the truth of natural law. The law, I think there's Newton's third law, and energy cannot be destroyed or whatever. It's very simple. All that energy, I probably got that wrong, but whatever. The point is that energy must go somewhere, and that karmic imprint must go somewhere. It must be spread out somewhere. It must be felt, and must be. So the same way an earthquake shakes all buildings, the same way if you kill an animal, you get the energetic charge of that. So does then the person who buys that animal, so does the person that eats that animal. So, everybody in a part of that, say you're in a band of bandits, and you all go into a building and you steal, and you're a part of it, you steal some money. You're a part of it, you get whatever discharge of that taking what's not yours that you get it, you're guilty of that crime, of that taking what's not yours. So it's the same with an animal. You take the life of an animal, it's not yours to take. You're going to be left with the energetic discharge of that harm done. And we could say, well, what's the problem? What's the problem with that? What's wrong with that? I say, well, the problem is that you take it on, so it's what that manifests. It doesn't keep your waters clean because it clouds your waters. The interesting thing about meat is that, yeah, you can build a lot of muscle, and yeah, you can be more active, and maybe you get satiety and all these things, but those are the benefits maybe, but the benefits don't always weigh out the costs. And you think, well, look, I'm not going to say too much. I don't know how long human beings used to live, but in the Bible they used to live 600 years or so, and I wonder why. And I know of the Essene Gospel of Peace, and I don't know if it's just Edward Bordeaux's Szynski's translation or if he just made it up. Either way, there is an idea, and I've read a lot about the Essenes. The Essenes did there were communities, many communities in the Essene. There were communities that did only eat living foods, and those were the communities that Jesus specifically came to, the lepers, and he taught them, he made them fast for 7 days, and 7 days cleansed them of a lot of all their impurities, really. And they did it with enemas and all this stuff. Whether Bordeaux Szynski made this up, I don't know. But the point is, I've read about Jesus enough and his work, and it seems that, he was doing stuff like this. He was working in those realms very intimately. And so he gave those lepers that technology of eating living, life-giving foods and how to sprout your food and all this stuff. Okay, now that leads to the keep your waters clean, because look, how can your waters be clean if you're eating foods that are not yours to take? If it's not yours, you think that God created you to eat what's not yours? No, he created you to eat what is yours. He creates a space for everyone. In some sense, he gives a space for everyone. And I don't mean that, okay, well then why do animals eat animals? That's animal kingdom. Animal kingdom is designed the way that it's designed, so don't worry about it. You should worry more about the way that you're designed. Actually, don't worry, be happy. But here's the thing. You should think about, consider what is your optimal environment, biological environment. What is your biosphere, right? As a human being, if you were to be thrown into a jungle and there was fruit trees everywhere, or if you were thrown into Sahara and there were just wild animals everywhere, where do you think you would survive the longest? You would survive in the fruit trees. You give a baby fruit, he's going to eat fruit and a piece of flesh. He's not going to eat the piece of flesh. He's going to eat the fruit. It's a no-brainer. You don't need a brain. You just need to. You just need your technology of instinct, right? So that's what I mean by keep your waters clean. It's actually not complicated. It's very simple to keep our waters clean. It's just not the common. It's not the norm that we face now. Is what is most optimal? What is the most articulate? What is the way that we're designed to eat? You know, and to me, it's very, very obvious. I can see it up here. I find it very hard in the society and the cultures and moving around the earth, trying to get that biosphere to be something that I can consistently receive. Now that's the difficult part. And I'm not saying this is easy, but I do want to just lay it on the line with the logic, reasonably speaking, using natural law, using hermetic principles, all these things. I can combine it all and say the law of polarity, the law of gender, the law of cause and effect, all these things, they play into whether or not we're really meant to be eating what we think we're supposed to be eating, whether we're supposed to be cooking food. Do you think on the polarity of cooked food to living food, which one is going to give you the most life? Cause, effect. If you eat something that is dead, do you think it's going to give you life? No. Cause, it's dead. Effect, you die. You become dead inside. Dead stuff inside of your guts. And then your body has to do everything it can to bring it back to life because it can't digest dead things. It can only make things that are dead into life. And there's a reality in that. I'm not saying that we can't, but it's taxing. And so you think you're going to feel more alive expending a lot of energy bringing something back to life that's already dead? Or do you think something that's alive and you eat that, you are going to have to spend as much energy trying to bring it back to life? It's already alive. It's full of enzymes, full of vitamins that are not denatured. It's going to make you feel amazing. Because guess what? You're not expending all this extra energy. And again, if you're eating a lot of food that's dead, over time, where's the life going to come from to make it alive? If you're consistently eating dead food, where's that energy and life force going to come? You're slowly going to be depleting your life force, whether you know it or not. And I know there's more ways than one to get life force. You don't just have to get it from your food. But maybe here's the thing. I can say, well, then you're getting a lot of sun, you're breathing a lot of air, and you're still eating dead food, cooked food. Okay, fine. That's fine. Here, hold on. Okay, that's fine. You're eating a lot of cooked food, but at the end of the day, you're gonna have to bring it back to life somehow. You're gonna have to stay alive somehow. And I know there's more ways than one to do that. You can go to the gym, you can exercise, you can bring it back to life, you can work hard. But here's the thing. If I gave you the choice between having to work very hard to stay alive and and depleting certain things that you cannot count on your body to 100% stay alive if you're constantly consuming food. It's a lot of energy. It's like 80% of our energy has to go into digestion when it's dead food. Okay? That's a lot of energy. So then you go to the gym and you spend more energy to get more energy. And true, there are things you can do that are an expenditure of energy that give you more in the long run, right? Like building muscle. Give you a lot of energy in the long run. Stamina give you a lot of energy in the long run because you're capable of moving through the world more, right? And stretching and all these things can be very beneficial to your longevity and to staying alive and keeping alive in the very moment. But let me just put it this way. What if you were to you not eat any dead food, you only eat living food, fruits, sprouts, flowers, things that are actually very abundant in like plains and jungles. You can have lots of flowers in the plains. You can have there are so many edible things that you don't even have to kill in order to eat. For example, there are some leafy greens that you just take a couple greens. It's still a living plant. You don't take too much in it. It likes it. A lot of medicinal plants, actually, they enjoy being harvested. They'll fluff, fluff. They'll be like, hey, thank you. And then you have fruit trees who obviously the fruit is not for the tree. The tree wants you to have it, eat it. So this is our food. It's very obvious what is for us. And I'm pointing out just directly that the highest karma food are going to be taking things that aren't yours. Like, that squirrel is not your life. That's not yours. We don't own that. we have dominion over in some sense because we have the responsibility to somehow take care of habitats and understand, but we have that responsibility not so that we can eat them necessarily, so that we can take care of them and recognize their place in the environment, in the biosphere that we're living. If you go, oh, well, the squirrels are doing this very vital task of keeping this species of plant alive, who knows, whatever, then you want to keep those squirrels alive so that that plant can continue to operate or whatever it is. You want to keep the biosphere moving. And actually, I think it was the Maoris. They have a very interesting, there was a conversation that was had, and it was very interesting. He said, planting a tree, we don't know. What is that? What do you mean I plant a tree? Who's say, why do I get, what? How can I plant a tree? Know where to put, you don't know. What you do is you clear the area, maybe with a little fire, and then, you allow the animals to come back and you connect dots. You don't do it, you don't go, oh, I'm going to plant an orchard here because I feel like it. It's like, to some degree, yes, of course we can do that, I feel. But at another degree, there's an element of getting out of the way that's super important. And it leads me all the way back to keep your waters clean. The best way to keep your waters clean is to get the F out of the way. Get out of the way. Get out of the way and allow the water to just be in its natural rhythm, right? How do you get out of the way? I live in Bali right now and I see the waters here. They're not clean. And for the most part, they're not clean in the lower areas. Up in the mountains, yes, much cleaner. There's no trash up there in very high mountains like near the volcanoes and the west side of Bali. But here's the thing. Once you get into Ubud area, Canggu, the rivers are disgusting. Things smell like toilet. Okay? So that is not a clean river. And why? Because people are putting things in the river that are not meant for that river. Right? They're putting sewage in the river. They're doing things with the sewage that shouldn't be done with the sewage. It should be biodegrading into the earth in certain specific ways. And there are ways we can do it, but there's a lot of people here. There's reasons why things are the way they are and why it's difficult. So, getting back to cleansing the waters, keeping the waters clean is all about eating the food that you're meant to eat. Fruit is clearly for us. I think even some nuts and even seeds that come out of pumpkins and seeds that come out of watermelons. Obviously, we're meant to eat those things because when we eat the watermelon, we eat the seed gets digested, comes out, we poop it out, and then a plant grows from that poop. It's a wonderful thing. Even I would say that some organic mushrooms or mushrooms that grow on compost would probably be edible for us because you're not killing the mycelial network. You're just eating the mushroom, the food body of the mushroom. I don't see why we couldn't eat that just fresh right there and then. And actually, that would be really good for us, I imagine. So, raw food, even sprouts, not necessarily a bad thing. I don't know. I think maybe a sprout, maybe eating the seeds sprout would be a little bit of karmic debt, but I don't know how much. So, but it's interesting. What builds your body the most, it seems, would be the foods that are higher in karmic debt. And if I was to ask what kind of a body is the most useful, it would be a lean body with tension, good tension work, ability to swing from trees, and kind of like chimps. We would look more like apes and chimps, I would say. And I think if we were to eat our natural diet, our natural food, like fruit and flowers and some leaves off of the trees, I think we would be actually quite muscular. At least that's my theory, and very lean and very healthy. And our minds would be very crisp and very clear. And this is the reason, I thought the reason to eat the way that you're supposed to eat, this is another thing. Why keep your waters clean? Why? You can ask. It's a good question. Why would I want to keep my waters clean even? The reason you want to keep your waters clean is because your waters are your mind, your ability to think, your ability to see and cut through things like a razor's edge. That's why you want to keep your waters clean, because crisp, clean waters are pure and powerful. Do you want to be pure and powerful? Or do you want to smell like shit and just not be able to think clearly and just go along with the masses the way the masses? It's designed the way that's designed, and that's the karmic imprint of the choices that we've made as a humanity, and whatever got us to that point. It did get us to this point, whether it was malicious or not, or just an accidental kind of forgetfulness of truth, which could be all of the above. Whether it's a control system, it would make a lot of sense. If you wanted to control people, you'd need to dull their minds, and that would mean feeding them high karmic foods and meat high karmic foods and meat pots and things that would make them dull and just go along with it and lift heavy stuff for no reason, sure. But if you wanted to clean yourself up and become free from all of it, what would you eat? And I would say, would it make sense to take on more karmic imprinting foods, or would it make sense to take less on karmically and to become more clear, more clean? And that would be the task. I think it's interesting when we take medicinal things like mushrooms or other things like ayahuasca or San Pedro. When we do those things, what happens is our waters start to purge and clean and clear. Why? Because our awareness becomes powerful. I think it's because some energy comes into us and cleans us out. And what happens at that point when that energy comes in is that our waters get purged of the clouds, of the BS. And the more we work with those medicines as medicine in medicinal ways, not recreationally, the more that we're going to start to see and understand and feel clearly, right? I don't think we're meant to feel lethargic every day when we wake up in the morning. I think we're supposed to jump out of bed happy as a clam and get after the thing that we're supposed to get after with purpose and being driven for it. I mean, it's not that complicated. It's really, life's not that complicated, but I think the food and the actions and the thoughts and all these things, they play a huge part in trapping us and entangling us in confusion and giving us a sense that, that we don't have the answers already. We do, and they're in our blood, they're in our bones, they're in our muscles, they're in our mind. We can look deeply within ourselves and receive all the answers that we need by just simply using our intuition. But it's hard to be in your intuition if you're constantly consuming karmically high imprinting foods. So the other one I wanted to say was become aware of what you're doing. This is super important. Become aware of what you're doing is just simply knowing, look, if I'm going to eat an animal, know what I'm doing. I am going to be receiving a lot of karma from this. Don't be surprised if tomorrow you have a lot of extra energy or you feel extra. When I say energy, actually I don't mean energy. When I say energy, no, not energy, weight. Tomorrow when you feel like you have a big weight that you need to lift off yourself and you're going to have to expend a lot of energy to get that weight off, don't be surprised if the day before you ate a chicken, you ate some beef, you ate some animal, okay? And don't be surprised that when you eat cooked food, you're going to need to work very hard to get that cooked food out of your system. One of the reasons why you build a lot of muscle eating cooked food, eating animals, is because you have to work extra hard to get it out of your system. Otherwise, what would happen, if you ate a lot of food, you would just get fat and you get lethargic and you wouldn't feel good. You would be naturally predisposed to eat less food if it was cooked. But the funny thing is that we don't, because it takes more energy to get rid of it than it does to keep it, right? You just kind of hold on to it and your body starts to accumulate. You get fat over time if you overeat and you eat a lot of cooked food. So, point is, I think it's very simple. I know it's very simple. And then the next one is practice the technology of awareness. If you're going to do something, know you're doing it. Become aware of it. Be aware of where your food comes from and what it's going to do to you. Start to pay attention to how it feels. And the next one is knowledge where food came from. Remember and understand where your food is coming from. Remember that plants are coming from the ground, the root vegetables are coming from our roots. You're taking the whole life of that plant, you're taking it out. I am saying good and bad. I'm saying, look, here's the thing. If you're gonna take the life of a planet, everything is alive. I'm not saying that it's gonna scream as loud as a cow is gonna make a sound. But I'm just saying there is a karmic imprint to everything, and that the reality is that it can be proven through how clear your waters are. If you feel good eating raw, living fruit, then that should be the sign that when you eat a cow and you don't feel as optimal, it would mean that something is going on, right? Now, I would just say, before anyone scoffs and says, well, that doesn't work, I'd say, how about you try it first? I've done 3 months of raw, and I did salads, I did all kinds of things. I did nuts and seeds, and everything was raw though. Fruit, avocados, all this stuff. Everything was raw. I felt amazing. I felt the best I've ever felt, and it's a commitment. It takes a lot of work, but I don't scoff it because I know how well I felt after. I healed pneumonia with that. I healed chronic sicknesses that had been following me around for so long, since I was a child, since I was a baby actually. I got rid of my chronic pneumonia. I haven't had pneumonia since, okay? And I used to get it every couple months. I'm not even kidding. Every couple months. There's a lot of grief, there's a lot of emotional stuff, but the thing is when you eat animals, you take on that emotional imprint. And here's the thing, if you're not already optimally healthy, you're gonna take on that emotional imprint and it's gonna just get stored in your body, stored in your body, stored in your body. Now, let's say you eat animals, but you're very clear, you're gonna go to the gym every single day, you're gonna work very hard, you have your purpose already, you're working towards your purpose. But if you're sitting in the situation where you don't know your purpose and you don't already know that you're gonna go to the gym tomorrow and you haven't already gone to the gym today, I do not recommend eating those foods, because or I would say if you're gonna eat those foods, make sure you do all those things and you get out there and you get the sunlight and you breathe the air and you live vibrantly, because if you don't, you will die. And so that's the point here, is that if you recognize that there is a karmic intake of these foods, you just move accordingly. I'm not saying, I'm not sitting here on my podium and saying you should only eat fruit. I'm not saying that. Maybe in your situation it makes absolutely no sense to do that. I'm just saying know where your food comes from and keep your waters clean to the best of your ability. So understand, karmic intake means I'm gonna have to work extra hard to get rid of this, to move it through. And you might become very strong doing that in that process. That's great. I'm saying that you don't have to do it that way. You can not eat karmically imprinting foods and become a light source and a being that is full of vibrancy and potency and like a razor's edge. And you can do all that working very, very easily, like water flowing through a river. You can feel like, you could feel like water flowing down the mountain, feel like a waterfall hitting the base of the earth and crashing all over the ground. You could feel that power if you were to eat foods that were truly living, alive, meant for us, meant for our body, meant for us from the biosphere that we are born from in some sense. Garden Eden is maybe a metaphor, but it's also a technology, and it's a reminder that that's where we come from, that's what's optimal health for us, okay? And so the last one is keep your river clean. Keep your river, do everything you can to keep your river clean. It means going and working out and exercising and getting sunlight and breathing air and being around good and happy people and being happy yourself and vibrating as high as you can and eating the foods that bring you to life. That's what you gotta do. Speak the things that bring you to life, do the things that bring you to life, think, feel, be, just get alive, please. And that's the message of the video, is simply to come back to life. And the way to come back to life is, as I'm saying, is to do the right thing. Do the right thing. And I'm not saying that, your circumstances may not allow you to eat only fruit. And I'm not saying that I do right now. I'm just saying that it's important to know where your food comes from. It's important to become aware of what you're doing. And what I mean by awareness is to understand how things work. Just understand the principles. Understand what I said earlier about the polarity, and the dead food is going to make you feel more dead. Live food is going to make you feel more alive. It's very simple. If you're feeling dead right now, eat living food. Just change everything. Eat something that's alive. Eat something that's alive. Even I see people eating raw meat, and I imagine, it's probably better than cooking it. At least it's hydrated. At least it's full of the things that are in the meat and the flesh, and they're alive, and it's not going to go into your body dead. Even worse would be dead flesh than living. It's a law of polarity still works there. If it's dead flesh, as in cooked, and it's dead flesh, but it's not cooked, which do you think is going to be better for your living body? No other animal cooks their food. How many times does anyone have to say this and anyone to argue with it? It's inarguable. No other animal is sitting there with a frying pan. No, monkeys are not sitting there with frying pans making tarts out of fruit. They're not. They're just eating the fruit, and they get on with their lives, and they cuddle a lot. So here's the thing, and they fight a little bit, but over food usually. So as long as there's abundance of food and beautiful women everywhere, we're fine. And the more fruit we eat, the more fruit trees there will be, and the more beautiful women there will be everywhere. Whatever. And it'll just, everything can be beautiful. It doesn't have to be difficult. And this is what I'm saying. I'm not saying that everything has to be in Eden. I'm just pointing out that your life could drastically change and become extraordinarily abundant, but it does mean becoming aware of what you're doing. I believe that. I know that to be true from my own experience, and it just takes consideration and doing the right thing and coming in alignment with morality. And I will not say that, and this is specifically not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that, oh, by your choices alone, you will make everything wonderful. No, it's collective. Because the reality is we live amongst other beings. We live in a world, collectivized world. If 99% of the population is doing harm to each other and other animals and receiving all this energetic charge from doing harm to animals, and one another, then do you think we're going to live in a peaceful environment? No. If you're the only guy eating raw food, no. You're just the one guy in the 99% that is doing things that are right. And when I say right and wrong, I don't mean like you're condemned to hell. I'm just saying that right is something that is like the difference between punching your loved ones and giving them a hug. It's like that difference. It's the difference is one is very nurturing, one will help them grow. And I mean, it depends if you're in a situation with your boy and you need to like kind of grapple with them a little bit, obviously. But the point is that there is a right view and there's a wrong view. Thinking that what you're doing is good when it's actually doing bad is actually bad, and it's even worse that you think you're doing good. And this is very dangerous. The most dangerous thing I believe at this point is if you think you're doing the right thing when actually doing the wrong thing. Because the reality is truth, and our task as human beings with the capacity to think and feel and understand is to come in alignment with truth, with our actions, thoughts, and words. And in order to do that, we have to become aware of what we're doing and become aware of what is right and wrong, what things are. If you don't know what things are and you're just operating in this false reality in your mind, how do you think you're going to make anything better for yourself or anyone else? You have to get some variable right. You have to understand right and wrong in order to get somewhere that is better. If you're going to try to get somewhere better, doing something that is wrong, that's not going to work. So there's many examples of that, but I'm going to leave the video here. I think that was a really in-depth piece, for me, very powerful instrument for enacting change in my own life, and I think in your life. We'll be coming into alignment with what is true, what is real, what is actual, in order to actualize, in order to be the best that you can be. Because you have an idea like, oh, well, maybe you're sitting there and you're going, well, I want to make a lot of money, I want all these things. I want to suggest to you, maybe you don't want all those things. Maybe what you want is just to feel good. Maybe what you want is to feel fulfilled. And maybe what you want is to be in alignment. But you don't know that, so you make up all these other ideas of what you think you want. But actually, what your body and your mind and your heart need is fulfillment and to walk the path. To walk the path of truth. And to walk that path is a razor's edge. It's a very difficult path. You'll fall off many times. You get back on the path and you keep walking. And you become a reminder for everyone else to get their butts back on that path, because it's the only way. There's no other way. You can slip into society again and just be like that, but you'll be a little bit awoken and you'll be going, but I know this is BS. Okay, but then you get back on the path. Just stay on the path and you'll be much happier in the long run. I feel that I will be, and I have always been much happier walking that razor's edge than I've ever been trying to be mediocre and just go along with what they say and do what they do. I don't want to do that. It's not interesting to me. So I hope that maybe this opens some of your eyes and gives you some idea. These are the notes that I know it's backwards, but I'll just read them out to you. Keep your waters clean. Eat life-giving life foods. Eat life-living giving foods. Become aware of what you are doing. Practice the technology of awareness. Acknowledge where your food comes from. Know where your food comes from. And keep your rivers clean.